Claire traced the faded ink of Ryan's last letter, the words blurring with the tears welling in her eyes. "I miss you more than words can say," she whispered, the familiar ache in her chest tightening. It had been months since she'd received a letter from him. Months of silence, of unanswered questions, of a growing fear that she was slipping away from his memory. Claire and Ryan had been inseparable as children. Their families lived next door. Their childhoods a whirlwind of shared secrets, whispered dreams, and endless games of make-believe. Then, when Claire was 10, Ryan's family moved across the country. The world suddenly felt impossibly vast, the distance between them an insurmountable ocean. Friendship, fragile as a butterfly's wing, refused to break. They began to write letters, long, rambling missives filled with stories of their lives, their hopes, their fears. Claire poured her heart onto the page, sharing every detail of her day, every fleeting thought, every budding dream. Ryan, in return, painted vivid pictures with his words, describing the sights and sounds of his new home, his adventures, his growing pains. As the years passed, their letters evolved. The childish scrawls matured into elegant handwriting, the playful banter giving way to deeper conversations. They shared their triumphs and their failures, their joys and their sorrows. They confided their deepest secrets, their most cherished dreams. Slowly, subtly, their feelings for each other began to deepen. Claire found herself anticipating his letters, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Ryan's words, once merely a source of comfort, now held a power to both exhilarate and torment her. She started to see him not just as her best friend, but as something more. But then, the letters began to arrive less frequently. Weeks turned into months, and the once vibrant stream of communication dwindled to a trickle. Doubt gnawed at Claire. Had she said something wrong? Had she scared him away? Was he finally forgetting her? Driven by a desperate need to know, Claire decided to visit him. She booked a flight, her hands trembling as she packed her bags. The journey was a blur of anxieties and hopes. What if he didn't want to see her? What if he'd moved on? What if he no longer felt the same way? When she finally arrived at his doorstep, her heart hammered against her ribs. He opened the door, his eyes widening in surprise, then softening into a relieved smile. The years seemed to melt away, leaving only the familiar warmth of their childhood friendship. Over the next few days, they spent hours catching up, walking along the beach, sharing stories under the starry sky. Claire, hesitant to broach the subject of his silence, tried to enjoy the moment. But the question lingered, a heavy weight on her chest. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Claire finally confessed her fears. "I thought you'd forgotten about me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Ryan looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and love. "I never stopped thinking about you, Claire," he said, his voice low and husky. I was afraid. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a stack of letters, tied with a faded ribbon. I wrote to you all this time, he explained, his voice barely audible. Every single day. But I was scared. Scared that you wouldn't feel the same way. Scared that I wasn't good enough for you. Claire's eyes widened in disbelief. You kept them all? He nodded, his gaze fixed on the floor. I was afraid of rejection, of ruining the friendship we had. Claire gently took the letters from his hand, her fingers tracing the familiar handwriting. Each letter was a testament to his love, a silent confession that had remained hidden for years. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring the words on the page. I love you too, Ryan, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I've always loved you. And as they sat there, surrounded by the echoes of their unspoken feelings, they knew that the distance, the silence, the fear had only served to deepen the bond that had always existed between them. The long-distance love letters, finally revealed, had bridged the gap, bringing them closer than ever before.